good afternoon, everyone. It's Patty Henderson, the Math Marketing Manager at Pearson Canada. I wanted to welcome you to our Pearson Mythology online information session. And I'll do a little bit of housekeeping first. The screen that I have up now gives you a bit of background on how this webinar will run today. We have you in listen mode only, simply because we're going to record this. We will send recordings out to everyone after our meeting today, so you have that to listen to later. And so it's a little bit better for sound quality. I am going to apologize in advance today. We have an open house at our offices here at Pearson this afternoon, and there's lots of people having a good time just outside my door. So hopefully you can hear me okay, and let me know if you cannot. There is a chat box that you can type your questions in, and I'm honored to be joined today by Jeff Adams, who's our Director of Digital Learning, and he will be monitoring that chat box and will share with me any questions that you might have. Just know that the presentation is roughly about a half an hour, and then we'll have a question and answer session at the end. So if you have any parking lot questions, we'll definitely go through them at the end as well. And any questions that we either don't get to, or neither myself or Jeff can answer today, we'll reach out to you after the webinar and follow up with that. And again, you will receive a recording of this webinar. So thank you very much for coming today. We're glad you're making us a part of your day. I wanted to start by introducing you to Pearson Mythology and Pearson Mathology. Pearson Mythology and Mathology is a set of K-8 print and digital resources that is rooted in academic research and best practices. It's co-created with over 1,000 classroom teachers and consultants across Canada, and it's underpinned by a practical Canadian learning progression. Mathology helps you to know where your students are and define next steps for growth. It engages students at all levels while building their competence and their math skills. It instills a love of and a joy for math through rich, fun math activities and stories. It supports job-embedded professional learning for teachers, and it supports French immersion. So we'll be talking today about both Mathology and Mathology. Our resources have been adapted for French immersion. So that's quite an important part of today's story as well. On this page, you'll see some familiar titles that we have for research and professional learning, from Taking Shape to What to Look For, Teaching Math with Meaning, Elementary Middle School Mathematics. You'll see that we have grade 1 and 2 activity kits, as well as 72 math little books from K to 3. And at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see grade 1 Mathology.ca, and that is the piece of the puzzle we're going to be unpacking today as we go. When we first started thinking about doing new resources for math, we did a lot of research around the math teaching journey, and we learned, and this is no surprise to neither you nor myself, that it can be a time-consuming and a multi-step process. Either we go start from long-range planning to short-term planning, moving to teaching and preparing to teach, assessing, reporting, and professional learning. And so when we started to develop Mathology.ca, we wanted to really help support teachers on that journey. And the promise of technology is to shorten that journey in some way. And so we're going to share with you today how Mathology works to simplify and enhance that journey through a smart use of technology. It's intended to streamline planning, teaching, assessment, and professional learning. And for those of you who already know Mathology print resources, either the activity kits or the math little books, it really does a great job at seamlessly integrating Mathology components. So what is it exactly? Mathology.ca is a simple online tool for teachers containing rich math activities and pedagogical supports, and it's powered by 5 core functionalities: search, plan, teach, assess and track, as well as professional learning, all the while being aligned to Canadian curricula and our Pearson Canada learning progression, which is our developmental continuum that helps support teachers knowing where their students are and what the next steps might be. So that is the general overview, and I think one of the best things we can spend time on today is actually taking a look at Mathology.ca, so I'm going to take us to that and do a bit of a walkthrough. And what you are seeing on the screen is a very simple welcome screen. And you can see that there are some search functionalities. And so when we first started doing our research around Mathology, we know that a lot of classroom teachers are spending time searching for great lessons online, whether it's through Pinterest or paid teachers or a variety of other sources. And so we wanted to build something that would make that huge fire hose of information that's out there a bit smaller by providing really targeted math lessons that are at the right level for your students and directly attached to your curriculum. So I know we have a variety of folks today from a variety of provinces, so welcome, and just know that each version of Mathology, there's one specifically for each province and your curriculum. The version that I am in today is for Ontario, but know that there is a version of this for each province and tied directly to that curriculum. And so on this search page, you'll see that you can actually start by searching your curriculum and to see what lessons might be in there. And so I'm going to show you what that looks like today. When I hit search by curriculum, you will see the strands from your curriculum across the top and then overall expectations below. And so we're in number sense and numeration, and there are 3 overall expectations. And when I click on that overall expectation, there'll be a drop-down menu, and what drops down are your specific expectations from the curriculum. There's lots of them here. On the left-hand side, beside each one of those expectations, you'll see a little search icon there. When I click on that specific expectation, you'll see that lessons come up. We're showing here 10 results found to support that specific expectation in the Ontario curriculum, and you'll see the lessons as I scroll down here. They incorporate lessons from our activity kits as well as a math little book. So it's really helpful to be able to go into your curriculum and to be able to search by expectation. You can also search by grade, by type of lesson, as well as by strand. So that is your curriculum search. I'm going to go back to the home screen. You'll also see search by progression. So I'm going to go in here. I spoke briefly about our Pearson Canada learning progression. It is a developmental continuum that really helps teachers know where their students are and see where their next steps of growth might be. This learning progression is actually the foundation upon which we built Mathology. We've placed our math little books along this progression, as well as our activities and the lessons you'll see today. So you can search by progression and see what lessons are in there. Across the top, you'll see the strands from the progression. And just below that, you'll see the big ideas. So the first one is numbers tell us how many and how much. Underneath that, the conceptual thread. There are 3 for this big idea. And the first one says applying principles of counting. So if I click on that, you'll scroll down and you can see that our learning progression comes to life here. And you'll see that there are a variety of different lessons that you can search for within this. And so you have a student that says the number name sequence backward from numbers to 10. Where can I find a lesson that supports that student? You'll see the icon again for search. And if you click on that, we have a wonderful little book that's called Acorns for Wilaya that addresses that specifically. So that is how you search by learning progression as well. There's another way that you might want to search. You might just have a keyword that you're looking for. So I'm going to, in the search bar here, I'm going to type in skip counting because that's my favorite and hit search. And you'll see that there are 80 results of lessons that are great for skip counting. I'm just going to scroll quickly down so you can see how rich this resource is for skip counting alone. 80 lessons in there from activities to math little books. And again, you can narrow that search down by alphabetical, by strand, also by lesson order. So that helps, again, tame that fire hose down a little bit. And one other piece of ways that you can actually search, and this is really helpful when we've talked to teachers who have our print components, the ability to plan with Mathology. So I'm at the top, and you can see that we have most recent plan and all plans. So I'm going to go into all plans. We really wanted Mathology.ca to be a planning tool that helps support teachers on that journey of planning and shorten it a little bit. Again, the promise of technology is to make planning easier, and we'll see how Mathology.ca does that. Two different ways. You can create your own plan. I'll show that next. But when any teacher starts with a brand new resource, it's really helpful to have a few plans that are already developed so you can see your way through. Once you get used to the resource, you'll naturally want to start adding your own lessons. But for now, we have some really great yearly plans built in. You'll see that there are 3 options here. When you're looking at a year in math, you may want to start with number sense, and then maybe spiral out to measurement, back to number sense, out to patterning, and back. You may want to just start with patterning. That one's a popular one where you can start with patterning in the fall and get outside and do some work outside and come back in and make use of what you learned there. Or you might start almost anywhere. So these different options give you choice. I'm just going to go into the first one that we see here, option 2. Down the left-hand side are your weeks, and typically when you start in September, this could be the 3rd or 4th week of September if you wish. And this year plan starts with patterning, as you can see here. Investigating repeating patterns is the first week, and what it pulled are lessons that support that. So there's a math little book called Midnight and Snowfall. It's grade 1. It's a little book and it looks at patterning. You might want to start with that. The math little books are awesome. They are math wrapped in story, a really engaging way to start. Or you might want to start with some activities from the activity kit. And so you can see we have lessons that support that as well. When you get into the next week, creating patterns, I click down the left-hand side, and you see that you're still with Midnight and Snowfall. We've learned from our teachers who are using the math little books that every little book is roughly 2 weeks of instruction, so they're really rich resources. And so the second week, you're still with Midnight and Snowfall, and we've added 4 more activity cards as well. The week following, you're starting into counting, and you can see there's 3 math little books here and some more lessons. So that's a really great way if you're just getting used to a new resource. These plans will help teachers with confidence as they start. The other great way, though, once you've gotten used to using Mathology and you think, you know what, I want to create my own plan, pull some of my favorite lessons, but also bring in great lessons that I have taught recently, or things that our board or district have worked on and include in. We wanted Mathology.ca to be that place where you can add your own plans and make a great community there. So I'm going to start here with create a new plan. You can use an existing plan that's already in there, of course, or you can start with a blank one. So I'm going to start with a blank one. And I'm going to call this skip counting. And when I save that, here is a folder, which you might want to go in and title Skip Counting if you like. And down the side, on the right-hand side, you'll see that there are some lessons built in here, and they're called favorites. Each one of the 102 lessons that you have in Mathology.ca Grade 1 allows you to favorite them so that you have them ready to use, and my favorites are down the side. So I want to create my own plan, and I think I'm going to start with Operational Fluency, more or less, that lesson. All you have to do is drag it over, drop it in. You can write a comment about that lesson, and you can go from there. I may then go into Operational Fluency next and create and build from there. I talked about the ability to add your own lesson. This is really important. And so at the bottom, we have Add Non-Mathology Lessons. If I click on that, you can title whatever this lesson might be, add a description here, and each of these lessons that you attach are based on a URL. So if you have your favorite lessons in a Google Doc and you have a URL that you want to attach there, or a YouTube video that's a really great one as well, you can add that in there, and that becomes a part of your lesson as well, and that's quite helpful. And one of the things that you can also do with your own lessons here, teachers talk to us about the need to be able to understand my curriculum coverage. If I'm creating my own group of lessons here, how do I know my curriculum coverage and maybe where I need to fill some gaps? And so this will show you where you are with your curriculum. It provides a really handy material list of resources that you need to support it, usually MNIPs. You're able to share these lessons, which is really helpful, and you can share them either within the school with someone else who has a Mathology.ca license, or if you're in a district, it becomes a really rich resource for team teaching and for collaborative learning, because you can share your resources across any school and teacher that has that within a district. And of course, you can export that lesson as a doc as well. So some really great ways of helping teachers plan using Mathology. I'm going to go back to the home screen. So that's covering search in a very quick manner. One of the things that I wanted to share with you as well is a lesson. It'd be great to dig into one. So as I told you earlier, skip counting is one of my favorite. I have it pinned on my desktop here, so I'm going to go into that lesson. And I'm going to spend 5 or 10 minutes walking through what a lesson looks like. And each one has a very similar look and feel to make it really simple to work with. The first screen is about, and I'll walk you through that. We'll go into details next, into assessment, and related resources. So we're on the very first page, which is the about. And this gives you lots of background lessons about this lesson, the activity time, the group size. We know that there's a lot of teachers out there that maybe math is not their first teachable, and so providing some extra content background is a really helpful piece of information to share in about. We have the focus. This one, of course, is skip counting forward by 2s, 5s, and 10s. Your curriculum match here, as well as any cross-strand connections you might want to make, should you want to do that. This one has a great match, cross-strand match to patterning and algebra. The processes and competencies from your curriculum. And here again, you'll see our learning progression. And this time, it will be the place that you're at with this lesson, that this lesson is supporting, is highlighted in blue, which is really helpful. And so this lesson actually unpacks 2 of the big ideas from that learning progression. Numbers tell us how many and how much, as well as quantities and numbers can be grouped by or partitioned into equal-sized units. So it's nice to know exactly where you are in that learning progression for this lesson. I'm going to go back now up to the top and look at details. The details section is where I could say the rubber hits the road, because it's your lesson. What you're seeing on the screen right now is a digital representation of our activity cards that you see in our activity kits. And so on the top left, you'll see the strand, which is number, your materials list, as well as line masters that you might be using. So there's 2 with this lesson. There's a curriculum correlation, as well as an assessment master. And here we've linked them directly, which is really quite helpful, in PDF and Word. So these masters, if you like them the way they are, I would say download it and use it as is, but many teachers like to be able to adapt these based on the students they have in front of them from year to year, and so we've put a Word version in there as well, so you can adapt those. The simple 3-part lesson is here, before, what to do during, as well as ideas for differentiation. And the other piece that teachers who have used our activity kit really appreciate would be the consolidation piece. How do I know when the students are doing this activity that they are understanding it and getting from it what we had hoped? The other piece that is important for teachers are the watch fors, or the what to look for, those in the moment formative assessment ideas as you're walking around and observing the students doing this activity. And the other piece that everyone appreciates that we've included are the probing questions. So as students are doing this activity, you can see what they're doing, but oftentimes you want to unpack and know what they're thinking. And to uncover thinking, probing questions are really helpful. And so we've provided 4 or 5 at the bottom that you can access at any time. I'm going to go down to the images section so you can actually see the pieces from our activity kits come to life that you can project at the front of the classroom. So the very first one I'm going to show you is that same lesson that I just showed you. It's the front of the print card with your instructions and your lesson plan. The back of the card is great. This is where, as you're watching your students, you can help them progress. These are things that you can see and hear, and next steps as your students are playing this game or activity. The next steps piece has been a real aha moment for most people. It's great to know where your students are on that continuum, but it's even more helpful to know, how do I help that student progress? And so those next steps are right on this teacher card. The student cards in the physical kit, you get 10. They're laminated, and teachers love handing them out and have students using them in class with dry erase markers or with counters. The online version equally is helpful because you can actually project this. If you're projecting on a whiteboard, you might have the students come up and circle. This game is called Gourd the Groundhog. It's for skip counting forward. And there's two options for Gourd the Groundhog. There is a slightly more difficult side. We're looking at 50 acorns. And then when you flip the card over, there's 20. And so this is a really great way to have all of your students participating in some way on this activity. We've also projected some of our multi-use cards. This is an example of a hundreds chart that you can project. And we've also completed one of the activities, so you can see what this might look like when they're skip counting ahead by twos, which is really helpful. At any time you want to print these off, bottom right-hand corner, there's a print button, really helpful. We know this is never going to happen, but in case you happen to lose a print card, it's really helpful to be able to print those off as well. The other piece I wanted to share with you, we talked earlier about providing job-embedded, just-in-time professional learning for teachers. We know how hard it is, almost in every province, the ability to gather together in professional learning days. It's becoming harder all the time, especially with release time being so difficult. So we wanted to embed those moments of professional learning right into the resource itself. And so on the right-hand side, you'll see what we call a professional learning tab or bucket. And each one of these, there's 101 lessons in the grade 1. With each lesson, there is a video that helps teachers in 1 to 2 short minutes know what this activity is about. Why am I doing it? What are my watch fors as I'm doing this activity? And so I'm going to play this short video for you so you can see what is in here.
When we skip count, we organize objects into smaller groups of equal size and count by the number of objects in each group. For example, there are 2 cubes in each group, so we skip count by twos. 2, 4, 6. Or there are 5 cubes in each group, so we skip count by fives. 5, 10, 15. No matter what number we skip count by, the last number said represents the total number of acorns. Do your students realize that no matter how the 50 cubes are counted, the quantity stays the same? Or how the fewer cubes in each group, the more groups there are? During consolidation, discuss how skip counting may help students, both at school and at home.
And that is our short, almost tutorial video on what to do with this activity, why you're doing it, and what to look for. So very helpful there. And again, there's one for every activity in Mathology.ca. At the bottom of the details page, we also have roughly 100 interactives that we've built to support you. So for this one, the one that makes sense is the Pearson Canada 100 chart tool. So when I click on that, you can see an interactive hundreds chart, and this one supports skip counting. So you count on from 1 to 100, you might want to skip count by twos, for example, and enter. And so you can start with skip counting by twos. There's a variety of things that you can do with this interactive tool. It's quite helpful to have that for use at fun class. The next piece I'm going to take you into is assessment. And so we just spent some time in details. Actually, I'm going to go back a quick second where we looked at the back of the activity card, helping students to progress what you might see and hear in next steps. In the print version, teachers will spend time as they're circulating. I've seen this where they have dry erase markers, and they'll place their students in one of these boxes depending upon where they are on the continuum, and that's quite helpful. On the online version, we thought it would be really helpful to do something that supports teachers digitally to do this. So imagine you have your iPad with you. You're able to put all your students into this classroom, and I'm going to go into one that maybe has some students in here. Let's see. Most of these students their names will be across the top as you start, and as you're circulating, you'll see the same buckets from that activity card at the back, and you can start placing your students in a simple drag and drop. And what that allows you to do is to see where those students are. There's a little note-taking piece here where you can add a note about that student. So at a glance, you have placed your students where they are. Great to know where your students are, but again, the real richness here is the next steps. How do I help maybe Gia and Robert move into this next box of understanding? And so right below are next steps. When you click on that, you can see where the student might be a little bit stuck. The student does not associate the skip counting number with the quantity. What are my next steps in the moment to help support that student, to get them unstuck and move them into the next box? So those next steps are so important. And you can find them at the bottom of each one of these. The next steps may be a little bit different each time. And we'll go into the third box here. You have 4 students. You'll see there's some support in the moment, but there's also additional next steps. And this will link you to something I'm going to show you shortly, which is a mini lesson. In this case, we have an intervention lesson to support those 4 students. You might want to put them into a small group and give them a little bit more support together on this and move them forward. So that piece is really helpful. And once you have done that, the other piece that technology is quite helpful for is giving you a dashboard. And so Mathology.ca, we've built in some great analytics. So across the top, we spent some time around plan. Right beside plan on the right-hand side is a box called analytics. So I'll click on that, and you can see that there are class analytics and student analytics. So I'm going to go into the classroom first. And so we're in Miss Christine's class again, and you can see that we've done a number of lessons. There's 1, 2, 3. Christine's been busy. And this could be right before parent-teacher night. This could be you're getting close to a report card time, and it'd be great to know where your students are based on the lessons that you've been teaching. And so these are the lessons that we have, and you can see lessons down the left-hand side, the date that you've done that assessment that we just did, and the status. And it's a really simple dashboard. Orange is in progress, on track is great. And if there's a spot where the student needs some attention, you can see that here in red. And right to the right of that, you can see where the students are on the back of that assessment card as well. And you can view that card. It takes you right back to that card where you were. Get us back in. So that's the classroom view. And I'm going to next show you the student view. And so we're looking at one of Christine's students called Francesco. And again, this could be the day of parent-teacher night. And you might want to be able to share with parents what lessons you've been teaching, where Francesco is, where he might need some attention, and where he's on track. And again, these details will help you know exactly where he is on the learning continuum. You're able to export and print these at the same time. So that's a really quick view at the analytics. Just know that when you're in here, you can look at the activity. You can also get a view of the curriculum to understand where you are, and maybe if there are some gaps in the curriculum that you might want to go back in and address. And so when I click on that, you'll see that you've uncovered these 3 overall expectations, which is great. You also might want to dig a bit deeper. And so we have an advanced view. That advanced view allows you to take a look at the curriculum, and it will show you the outcomes, but it also gets into the expectations that are there, as well as you have a chance to take a look at the learning progression and see where you are there. So that's analytics. I'm going to pause because I've been going pretty fast here. Are there any questions to date that you might want to ask? Don't forget to use the chat box. Jeff is there to help you. He just poked me because I haven't been looking at that. So if you have any questions, do put them into chat. That would be just great. So the last piece I'm going to take you into today would be related resources. And I mentioned earlier that as you are doing your assessing, you may want to give students extra support. And this is where that extra support lives. And so I'm going to show you mini lessons first. You may have now grouped your students and you know that you have some students that are on grade. What is a mini lesson that helps support skip counting forward by 2s, 5s, and 10s? When I click on that, you'll get a mini lesson. It's roughly 1 page. It'll tell you the materials you need, what the lesson is, any resources that you might hear, and again, they're handy, they're linked right on the page, and you can print this at any time. So that's on grade. You'll also find that we've introduced some intervention mini lessons as well. The first one looks at students who are having difficulty with skip counting sequences. We know that can happen, and so there is a mini lesson for that group of students or that student that might be struggling there. Again, those next steps to help students progress is so important. And these are great in the moment mini lessons to support that. Intervention number 2, we are looking at students that have difficulty understanding that the number of objects will be the same whether they're counting by 1s, 2s, 5s, or 10s. If you have some students that are struggling there, how can you help them, support them, and move them forward? This mini lesson does the same. And you might have students that are to the far right of that assessment box, and you also want to help them and support them. We have some great extension mini lessons as well. And again, each time you can print these. As I go down, there are some more supports here. We know that misconceptions do happen in math, and so when we're in this lesson for skip counting, for instance, the one that comes up most often is when skip counting, students sees the numbers as labels rather than quantities. So what support is there for that misconception? Here is a very simple what to do and how to support students if they have that misconception, and you see that happening. Lastly, there are some next steps. As always, there are next steps. And so after the lesson, what are the next steps you might want to take in class? There's a suggestion on another game that you might want to play that will support them further. We also have a really nice at-home section as well. If you have a great relationship with your parents, here are some things that you might want to send home that help support students as well. And each one of these can be printed. There's support for word walls, should you be doing those. And at the bottom, love this too, this is really that learning progression in action. So you can see that we have a sliding scale here of lessons that are on grade. If you wanted to do a related lesson, here are the 3 that support that are on grade. You might want to go back, should we have some lessons here that are below grade, or go forward to lessons that help as well. And you can see on the right-hand side, we've talked a lot about activities. I thought I'd share with you what one of the math little books looks like. And so we're going to go on and look at On Safari. And very similar to how the lessons worked for the activity kit, this is what a lesson might look like for our math little books. And so the first section is about, tells you a little bit more about the book, what grade and what number. We also have support here for reading levels, and these are Fountas and Pinnell. The math focus, your curriculum. Again, the idea of some cross-strand connections and what that might look like. And for this one, there are quite a few, which is quite helpful. The competencies and processes from your curriculum, and exactly where you are on that learning progression. And so for On Safari, it's a very rich resource, and it unpacks 2 big ideas. Numbers tell us how many and how much, as well as numbers are related in many ways. And so that's the about for this. On the right-hand side, I just wanted to share with you, we do have professional learning videos for the math little books as well. The one that we have here, you guys might know Kyle Pierce, or Mathlete Pierce as he's known on Twitter. He has a great short video here that helps support counting. So that video is helpful here in the about. In details, you'll see the details for the little book, what the little book is about. It also has a link to a wordless text. The wordless text is wonderful. You can project it in front of the class and help with predictions, so that's there as well. Ideas on what to do for the first read is also there. And in the last bit, we have related resources. So what to do after reading, as well as any additional activity options. And so all of your line masters that you'd be using for this math little book, there's 9 of them here, are listed right here and easy to get to, again, in PDF and in Word. And as you scroll down, you can see the learning progression again and which little books might support it. So you might have some students that need a bit more support. And so you have Animals Hide, Lots of Dots, and A Warm Cozy Nest that you might want to go to next. So that is how you're supported with the math little books. I'm going to go next to favorites. That's the last piece that I haven't talked to you at length, and it's at the top. And so when I click on favorites, you'll see all sorts of lessons here with hearts on them. There's 101 lessons in Mathology.ca Grade 1 and Grade 2, which is coming out next fall. There's 185, and you should be able to tell quite easily which lessons are your favorites and work from there. And so you can see we have a list of favorited lessons here. When I go to the home screen, I'm going to flip back to the home screen for a moment. You'll see that we have 3 lessons that are pinned here on the desk. This desktop is quite literal. It is similar to when we did our our observations in math classrooms. We saw teachers when they are preparing for their lesson for the day, they would bring in either their math little book and put it on their desk, and maybe the activity card that goes with it, or any curriculum resources that they might use that day. We wanted this home screen to behave that way, so that you have just what you need on that day easily at hand. And so you can pin those favorites and put them on top. When we go back into favorites, say you read on Safari that day, it's great, we've done our work there. You can unpin it, and you might want to next go into Paddling the River, and so you can pin that. When we go back to the home page, you'll see that Paddling the River is now on your desktop. So that is a very quick tour through Mathology.ca. Before I get into the final section of our webinar, are there any questions that you might want to share with Jeff through chat? Please do so now, and I'll get us back into our presentation. Okay, so we're in the home stretch here. So I just wanted to share with you a bit about what is in Mathology.ca Grade 1 and Grade 2. So as you can see, Mathology.ca is a carefully curated, curriculum-focused place for lessons to reside. At Grade 1, that just came out, there are 101 math lessons from our activity kits. There's 34 math little books from K to 1. The learning progression, as well as 100 of those professional learning videos. When we get into Grade 2, which you'll be able to see more of in the fall, we have 185 lessons. At Grade 2, there are more lessons because we did a lot of homework and research around what's different between Grade 1 and 2, and we learned that the gap, if there's going to be some gaps, they occur as you go up the grades, and so the need for some more of those intervention mini lessons were greater, and so we have more lessons in Grade 2 to support that. We also have 38 math little books for Grades 1 and 2. We have the learning progression and over 160 professional learning videos as well. After I do a walkthrough like this, most people will ask me, well, how much is Mathology.ca? And we have a couple of options for you here. There's a 1-year subscription per teacher for $140, but we also have a 5-year subscription available. It's a bit of a discount there. It's 5%. And so you'll see that it's a $665 per year, works out to roughly $133 per year. So two different ways that you can purchase. And just know that we also have some bundle pricing. We know we have some great customers out there that have already invested in our print resources, whether it's the activity kits or the math little books. And so when you add Mathology.ca to that, there is a discount. And at the end of this, I'll share with you a slide of our local salespeople that you can contact should you want to know more information around pricing and bundling. If you have come to us because you have just completed your Mathology.ca trial, we've been running free trials ever since the winter, and you need to see more, great. There's some help here that you can get if there's more information you need, help@Mathology.ca. If you're new to us and at the end of this presentation, you would like to kick the tires a bit and try it out and see what it's like and spend more time with it, we'd love for you to start a free trial. And the free trial information is right here where the arrow is, etr.mathology.ca. And you might have liked what you've seen tonight, and you think, well, I would love someone I know to attend one of these sessions. We have 3 more left. I think 3, it might be 2 now that I'm thinking about it. We have some more sessions available next week. And I'll show you when those are. So yeah, today's Thursday, May 30th. So we have one next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And we have another one next Thursday, which is 6 p.m. Eastern or 4 p.m. Mountain. And lastly, we've arrived at the end. We have a chance now for some Q&A if you have any questions. If you don't, what I'm going to leave up here is this screen. These are our wonderful account executives that we have across Canada. Their names are there. If you can locate your person, they would be happy to talk to you more about this. So I'm going to leave the screen up, but I know we just had a question that looks like in chat. Is the Mythology resource only available for grade 1? So great question, Robin. Right now it's available for grade 1. We are working on grade 2, and that is going to be available in the fall to try out, and we'll be going up the grade. So Mathology in general is a K-8 set of resources, and so each year we'll be building a new version of Mathology.ca to support the other grades. So grade 1 this year, grade 2 next fall, and by next spring we are going up the grades to grades 3 and 4, and then we'll continue on every year until we've completed up to grade 8. So I'm hoping that will help you. And if you're interested in the grade 2, contact us. You might want to give it a try as well. Are there any other questions for us tonight? I see we have another one. Oh, Robin, thanks for that. So we'll be in touch if you want to try it. That would be just great. So unless there's any other questions, I'm going to be here for the next 5 minutes. I'll keep the screen up in case you need the contact information. I want to thank you for being here tonight. We know you have had a busy day, so for you to join us at the end of a busy day, we appreciate that. And we hope you have a good rest of your day and a safe trip home. Thanks for joining us. And thanks, Jeff, for helping me out.